facing off in the South China Sea as a Chinese vessel moves into Taiwan-controlled waters. And how has the U.S. been countering China from the Panama Canal to Iran to the Western Hemisphere? Colonel Rob Manus joins us to unpack the geopolitical puzzle pieces. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Chinese and Taiwanese Coast Guards facing off in the South China Sea on Friday. Here's the Taiwanese Coast Guard issuing a warning to a Chinese ship nearing Taiwanese waters.
You have entered our waters without permission. Your actions have already affected the order and safety of our national waters. Please immediately change course and leave our waters as soon as possible.
The situation escalated after the Chinese Coast Guard ship ignored the warning, sped up, and forced its way into waters off Taiping Island. In a statement, Taiwan's Coast Guard said the Chinese Coast Guard ship is challenging Taiwan's sovereignty, adding both sides engaged in intense verbal exchanges and were still in a standoff when the statement came out. Just 2 days ago, 4 Chinese Coast Guard ships entered waters near Kinmen, an island controlled by Taiwan. The Chinese Coast Guard ships were later expelled. The Chinese Communist Party claims Taiwan as its own territory, but Taiwan rejects that claim. Beijing also makes maritime claims to the waters around Taiwan. Japan has agreed to begin.
Designation does not ban U.S. companies from doing business with them. It prohibits Pentagon contracts, and it also could raise concern among American investors and business partners. Analysts have long warned of China's espionage tactics through its civilian sector.
China uses every point of contact to take down our society. 2017 National Intelligence Law of China actually codifies the obligation to commit acts of espionage.
The move comes as Beijing increases pressure across the Indo-Pacific. Over the weekend, China deployed its largest maritime patrol vessel east of Taiwan, while Chinese Coast Guard ships entered restricted waters around Taiwan. Taiwan responded by dispatching its own ships, saying the Chinese ships were ultimately forced out. It comes as the CCP is upset with the recent military cooperation between Japan and the Philippines, which are working to define its maritime boundaries in disputed waters that China may claim as its own. Taiwan says Beijing's using those talks as justification for these increased operations near the island. At the same time, the U.S. is bolstering regional deterrence there. The State Department recently approved the sale of 5 Seahawk military helicopters to New Zealand in a deal worth roughly $1.5 billion. The move follows Chinese live-fire naval drills earlier this year in between Australia and New Zealand, all drawing concern of increased Chinese aggression across the region. For NTD News Washington, I'm Jack Bradley.
Taiwan's military simulating the destruction of an invading Chinese force during a large-scale live-fire exercise along the island's central coast. The drill featured Taiwan-made Thunder 2000 rocket launchers, artillery, mortars, and anti-tank weapons in a scenario designed to repel a Chinese amphibious landing.
This time, we are simulating real combat, rapidly moving into position. This training is quite challenging for the soldiers. We will conduct tactical firing exercises again in the second half of the year, and we will train diligently.
Military officials say the exercise was more realistic than past drills, emphasizing dispersed firepower, rapid movement, and reduced preparation time. The training took place across 8 positions along a 20-kilometer stretch of coastline facing China and marked the first operational area live-fire use of the Thunder 2000 system in 7 years. Taiwan regularly conducts such exercises as Beijing continues military pressure around the island. A major escalation in regional tension over Taiwan. In an extremely rare move, 5 Chinese ships claimed jurisdiction over waters near Taiwan. They questioned 3 commercial ships passing near the island about their point of origin and destination. Taiwan said Chinese ships began harassing them on Sunday and have since been expelled. Here's Taiwan's Coast Guard broadcasting to commercial ships that were questioned by Chinese vessels.
This area is the maritime zone of Taiwan. China has no sovereign rights and no jurisdiction here. Maintain your normal navigation. There is no need to respond to rockets of Chinese government vessels. If you need any assistance, please immediately contact Taiwan Coast Guard vessels via radio or other means of communication.
Taiwan's Coast Guard said commercial ships maintained normal navigation and were not approached by Chinese vessels. Taiwan's Cross-Strait Affairs Agency condemned Beijing's move, saying it violates international law and undermines regional security. The U.S. State Department is urging Beijing to cease its military, diplomatic, and economic pressure against Taiwan, saying Washington expects differences to be resolved by peaceful means. The Chinese regime has increased pressure on Taiwan, sending ships near the island several times this month. Last Saturday, Beijing sent 4 vessels to waters east of Taiwan, saying it was conducting a special operation. And last Friday, Chinese and Taiwanese Coast Guard vessels faced off near Taiping Island, a Taiwan-controlled island in the South China Sea. A bipartisan group of senators urging the administration to close a route for the Chinese military to gain access to a
他必须要去跟各国磋商。所以如果这回到川普讲的，他瞧不起欧洲人嘛，这我的权利。他不是甚至说，你就是说你欧洲就是一盘散沙。所以大家都看到中国在利用欧盟的共识权。然后呢，趁着因为你没办法有共识，又继续的就是到货到你那边。所以讲白的话，就是中国看不起欧盟，欺负你欧盟。所以现在可以看到，其实部分的官员就是比较着急。而且从这边还有延伸出来的问题是，如果没记错，他应该是透过非洲一些跟欧洲友好的国家，比如说像摩洛哥，再集产地到中国，不是欧盟去。所以换句话说呢，他从各方面的就是吃欧盟够，价高。所以呢，欧盟，我当然觉得一开始讲的世界不是只有G2，欧盟的科技跟它的市场跟人口都不可忽视。可是它最大的缺点仍然在于它要共识权，所以我们就要看欧洲哪时候会觉醒跟团结。
像这个副主席说，如果不能够保护到这些成员国的经济利益的话，有可能到时候欧盟就是会变成民族国家浪潮，各国想要拿回他自己的权利啊，不愿意再让渡给欧盟处理了。
是啊，
但是这样的话就变成一个不团结的欧洲，或者一分化欧洲，就容易被中共各个击破，这也是两难了。
我觉得还是回到那个问题，是现在是最危险的时刻。就是现在是中共产业补贴到产能过剩最高的时刻，
那也是回光返照的时刻。
所以大家要能撑过这边就没事。
关键的考验。
对啊，那如果你还是想着跟中国去想从那边赚钱，那么当然就会被人分化。事实上也赚不到钱。
好，非常感谢老师的分析。节目中，我们请老师用1分钟总结今天的讨论。
我觉得现在是到越来越凶险的时刻，随着中国经济越来越衰退，那么北京当局会做越来越多的反扑，
要拉垫背，
对，然后试图挽救，然后把全球拉进去，拖下水。所以呢，在这个时间点的话，希望各国，包含台湾是模范生，美国也是模范生，要赶快跟中国保持距离。陈来我们会讲太多遍。那未来这种跟中国划清界限会越来越明显。我觉得大家最主要的原因在于，大家会发现中国的市场是虚幻的。你虽然有13亿人口，可是你能够到底买多少外国货？
所以现在中国人自己在研究发现说，人口可能大降，很多东西是假的。
是啊，然后最近那个消息有出来嘛，猪肉价格都跌到10块钱。他们民众连猪肉都消费不起，你怎么消费得了欧洲或日本、台湾、美国高额的商品？所以当你跟他继续做贸易，你只会被他倾销，你的东西卖不进去。所以我觉得时间是站在各国，不是站在中国。
要选择非红色的船舰。
对。
好，非常感谢老师，也非常感谢观众的。